In this video, we're going to talk about possessive adjectives in French. I've already copied this table down into my notes. Go ahead and pause the video to copy it down into your notebook. And when you're ready, unpause the video so we can move on. So possessive adjectives are words that explain who owns something. For example, my dog, or her brother, or their house. The thing that the person owns is a noun. And in French, nouns have gender and number. So in order to determine which possessive adjective to use, you always first have to look at the noun that's being described. So when we use possessive adjectives, the noun is either going to be masculine singular, or it can be feminine singular and start with a vowel. Feminine singular nouns, and plural nouns. To determine which of these you're going to use, you have to look at the noun first. The possessive adjectives in English are my, your, his, her, our, your, and their. Now you'll notice that there are two different ways of saying your in French. In English, there's only one way to say your. So this can be kind of confusing. To help, think of this your as the your you would use if you were referring to someone as tu. And this your as the your you would use if you were referring to someone as vous. Also, you'll notice that his and her are grouped together in this chart. In English, we use his to talk about things that a male owns, and her to talk about things that a female owns. But in French, there's no way to distinguish between those two. So the word for his is the same as the word for her. That can be really confusing, and we'll do some more practice with that. So now we're going to fill in the possessive adjectives in French. Possessive adjectives are mon, ma, mes, ton, ta, tes, son, sa, ses, notre, notre, nos, votre, votre, vos, leur, leur, leur. Oops, got the S. Now there are a few things I want you to notice about these possessive adjectives. One thing is that the plural possessive adjectives all have S's on the end, but you don't pronounce those S's. So we have mes, tes, ses, nos, vos, leur. The only time you would pronounce them is if the next word that comes after it starts with a vowel. But for now, just know that typically they're not pronounced. Another thing you'll notice is that these top three have different masculine and feminine forms. Mon, ma, ton, ta, son, sa. And they follow a similar pattern. But then when we get to these bottom three, there's no difference between the masculine and feminine forms. Notre, notre, votre, votre, leur, leur. So that makes these a little bit easier to use, in my opinion, because you don't have to worry about the gender or the number. Well, you do have to worry about the number, but you don't have to worry about the gender of the thing being described. Okay, now we're going to do some practice with some examples. So if you need more time to copy this down, go ahead and pause the video. And then when you're ready to move on, unpause the video and we'll do the examples. So our first example is, we're going to use the possessive adjective my. Okay, so we want to say, my sister speaks English. Well, we need to use the correct possessive adjective for my. We can't just pick any one of them. So to determine which one to use, we have to look at the word sir, because that's the word that comes right after the blank. You really don't need to worry about the rest of the sentence. I just put it there to show you how this is used in a sentence. So sir, the first thing we're going to ask ourselves is, how many sisters are there? Is it singular or plural? Well, if it were plural, there would be an S on the end, so we can determine that it's singular. So we know we're not going to use this plural column. Okay, so mentally cross that out. Okay. Now we have to decide, is it masculine singular? Well, is sir masculine? No. That means it's feminine. It's feminine singular, but does it start with a vowel? Is S a vowel? No. So it's feminine singular. Okay, so this is the column we're going to be looking at. And then we have to look at the English word that we want, which is my. So we go over here, my, go over to the feminine singular column. We've got ma, so the answer would be ma sœur parle anglais. Okay, so just to recap, this is singular. And we know that because there's no S on the end. And it's feminine. And we know that it's feminine because it means sister, but also because we could look in the dictionary and look up the gender of that noun. Okay, let's try another one. This one's going to be a little bit trickier. Her father is French. So remember, we don't really have to worry about the rest of the sentence. We're just going to look at the word père. So the first thing we ask ourselves is père singular or plural? Well, is there an S on the end? No. That means it's singular. So we're not going to use the plural column. We know it won't be one of those. Is père masculine or feminine? Well, it's masculine because it means father. Or we looked in the dictionary and saw that it was masculine. So we know that this is singular and masculine. Now, it doesn't matter then, oops, I usually do mask like that. It doesn't matter if it starts with a vowel or not because all the masculine ones are in this column. So we have masculine singular nouns are going to use one of these. So now we have to look at the English definition that we want, which is her. So we find her on the end, go over to this column, and we have son. So son père est français. Her father is French. Now, what if I were to change this to his? Well, then this would be the same. His father is French is also son père est français. There is no way to tell whether this means her or his. So if a person just came up to you and said son père est français, you wouldn't know whether they're talking about a girl's dad or a boy's dad unless you saw the person. Okay, so you would have to know by context. Okay, this is a little different from English, and it's kind of hard to get used to. Our next example is we want to say your singular frère ne parle pas espagnol. Your brother does not speak Spanish. Now, this singular here does not necessarily mean that we're talking about one brother. It means that we're talking to one person. So we're talking to like our friend, something like that. Okay. Frère could still be singular, or it could be plural, because you could be talking to one person about two of their brothers, you know. So first thing we do is look at the noun and decide, is it singular or plural? Well, there's no S on the end, so it is singular. And then we have to decide, is it masculine or feminine? Well, we know that frère means brother, so it is masculine. So now we're going to go up to our chart. Masculine singular is going to be somewhere in here. We want the word your singular. So in our chart, there are two different ways of saying your. Which one is the one that you would use if you were talking to one person? And, well, I suppose this one could be if you were talking to like a formal person. But if it's your friend, you would use two. And when I put singular on something, I'm referencing this one. So in this column, the one that means your is ton. So we're going to say, ton frère ne parle pas espagnol. Your brother does not speak Spanish. Okay, we'll do a couple more. And we want to use our. Okay, our aunts study Spanish. Look at the word tante. First thing we're going to ask ourselves is it singular or plural? Well, look, there's an S on the end, so that tells us it's plural. Well, now look at this. If it's plural, it doesn't matter if it's masculine or feminine, because there's only one column for plural. So it happens to be feminine, but it doesn't really matter in this case. Okay? So all we are really worried about is that it's plural. So which one means our? So we're going to go over here, say our, plural column, no. So nos tantes étudient l'espagnol. Okay, we're going to do one more. This one's a pretty tricky one. So we're going to do there. There. Well, I'm not going to actually read the rest of the sentence. I want you to think about this. So, first thing we need to do is look at the noun. Don't worry about the rest of the sentence. Here's the noun. First thing we need to decide is it singular or plural? Well, typically, I've been saying if it ends with an S, it's plural, right? However, the word fils always ends with an S. So there's no difference between one fils and more than one fils. They both would look the same. So this is one, this is two or more. So this means son, sons. They're the same. They look the same. So how do we know if this is one son or more than one son? Well, this is where you have to look at the rest of the sentence. So in this case, we're going to look at the verb. And we see that the end of the verb is E. Now that's an ER verb, voyager, right? That's the infinitive. And remember, when you conjugate ER verbs, you take off the ER, and you've got E, ES, E, ONS, easy, ent. Those are our verb endings. Well, the one that means, or the one that's singular is just an e. And since this is just an e, it is safe to assume then that this is one son. So this is singular. Okay. What if it were plural? What would this say? Well, then this would be ent. Okay, this is the plural ending. So it's singular, and then is it masculine or feminine? Well, fils means son, so it is masculine. And we want the word there. We're going to go up to our chart and go, okay, masculine singular, there, leur, L-E-U-R, with no S on the end. So, we've got leur fils voyage en France. Their son travels to France, or is traveling to France. Okay? And that is how you use possessive adjectives.